Minister. We now will go to topical number 2 in the name of Deputy Pádraig O'Sullivan to ask the Minister for Agriculture, Food and the Marine to discuss recent animal welfare and neglect concerns in Cork North Central. Deputy O'Sullivan.
Thanks, Cathaoirleach. Minister, thank you for coming in this evening to take this question. The reason I tabled the question was we're coming through a period in Cork City, particularly in the north side of the city where my constituency is, where we have had a spate of animal welfare issues over the last number of weeks, many of which have made national headlines. This is something I spoke about here, I think, about last year again, under topical question as well. And to be honest, on the ground, particularly in Cork City, it doesn't appear that, despite the heavy investment that the government is making, and I know that we have given over €6 million in funding to charities to police this for us last year, despite that investment, we are seeing on the ground in Cork anyway more and more of these incidents of animals being mistreated or, in certain cases, deceased in or abandoned on sites and so on, or the side of the road. It's something that's really worrying for me because, as I said, we're investing more money than we've ever had or ever given to these charities, but the figures speak for themselves. And if I can just take you through a few parliamentary question responses I received in the last few weeks. So between 2020 and up till today, there's only 2 people who have been fined for animal mistreatment of €5,000 or less, that fine. There's a second fine that's open to the authorities, is up to €250,000 fine. Nobody has been fined to that amount in the last 5 years. A number of people have been imprisoned for up to 3 years over various years, but you are talking single digits. And the same is true for the number of people disqualified from owning animals, albeit there was a spike last year. 27 people are now disqualified from actually owning animals, not just horses, nationwide. So that would indicate to me that the trend definitely is moving in the direction that more and more of these incidents are happening and more mistreatment of animals is becoming more common. And the difficulty I have, Minister, is we rely heavily on animal charities in particular, and I just give a shout out for My Lovely Horse in particular in Cork, who do Trojan work, but it's expensive to do the job that they do. You're talking thousands of euro often to save a horse, to nurse it back to care or wherever the case may be, and in a worst case scenario often maybe disposing of a carcass or unfortunately having to euthanize a horse, and those things are very expensive and taxing on charities. And the difficulty I have is we actually have loads of legislation in this space. The Guards have powers, the local authorities have powers, the Department of Agriculture has powers. But all I see every case that we come across is a failure for all those authorities to actually coordinate and to give a coordinated response. The most recent case we had in Glanmire, all the authorities that I've just mentioned were notified that an animal was abandoned on a site, on a private site. But over the few days, about finger pointing about whose responsibility it was, the animal unfortunately died. Now, it was up to the private landowner in that case to dispose of the carcass. Now, the landowner was uncontactable for a while and didn't realise the horses weren't even on his site, but it still fell upon him to dispose, and the expense of it fell on him to dispose of the carcass. And I just, in all this, I wonder where the owners of the actual horses are, and it was difficult for the authorities to identify who the owners were because, again, these horses were not chipped. And there is requirement there that horses would be microchipped, but unfortunately it's just been blatantly ignored. So what I'm asking, I actually have a private member's bill which I lodged yesterday, and I would ask that the Dáil would give consideration, and maybe you could bring this back to the Ministers, Ministers Brown and Ministers Hayden, that I would ask that a designated official be appointed in each local authority, so we don't have this go to the Guards, go to the local authorities, go to the Department of Agriculture official. I believe if somebody's there tasked with the job, inspecting licences, ensuring the animals are microchipped, I believe that we can actually get around the kind of mess that we have at the moment. Thank you, Minister.
Thank you very much, Deputy, for your question. And at the outset, I want to say I will be raising the matter here with both ministers, and I have a response here on behalf of Minister Hayden. Neglect or causing unnecessary suffering to any animal is unacceptable in our society, and the Department of Agriculture, Food and Marine is fully committed to the ongoing promotion and enforcement of high animal welfare standards. The Department continues to enforce the law in this important area, as do An Garda Síochána, the Customs Service, the Irish Society for the Prevention of Cruelty to Animals and the Dublin Society for the Prevention of Cruelty to Animals. The Department of Agriculture, Food and Marine works very closely with these bodies The Animal Health and Welfare Act 2013, introduced by the Department, brought all farmed and companion animals, including leisure, sport and working animals, under a single legislative framework. The Act provides a modern framework for applying standards in the area of animal health and welfare. Since the Animal Health and Welfare Act 2013 came into operation in March 2014, 182 individuals have been successfully prosecuted. The programme for government provides a commitment to prioritise equine welfare and to build on existing inspectorate supports across the country, ensuring a consistent approach to dealing with horse welfare. Deputy O'Sullivan will also be aware that the Department commissioned Professor Pádraig Wall to carry out a root and branch review of our equine traceability system in recognition of how fundamental robust traceability is to ensuring equine welfare. Professor Wall was invited to make representations which would enhance the integrity and security of our traceability system and deliver improved accountability and, in turn, better welfare outcomes for our equines. Professor Wall has consulted with stakeholders across the whole equine sector, and his report will be published shortly. Under the Control of Horses Act 1996, local authorities may take a range of actions in relation to equines, including prohibiting horses in certain areas and issuing licences and the seizure of horses in contravention of the Act. These powers can be used in respect of straying horses, which include horses put on land without the owner's permission, including public land. Local authorities may also prosecute offenders. The Department provides funding to local authorities as a contribution towards the costs incurred by them in operation of the Control of Horses Act 1996. The number of unwanted horses being seized by local authorities reached a peak in 2014 and has declined significantly since then. All legislation in the Department is kept under constant review, including the Control of Horses Act 1996, for which plans for replacement legislation are advancing. The aim of this replacement legislation is to simplify and clarify procedures in the Act in terms of seizures and disposal of horses. The Department undertook a stakeholder consultation in 2023 on the Control of Horses legislation, with submissions sought by November 2023. 4 submissions were received, which will feed into the legislative process. The Department is fully committed to supporting sustainable initiatives in line with the programme for government and working together for animal welfare, Ireland's Animal Welfare Strategy 21 to 2025. As part of this commitment, the Department will continue to support urban horse projects nationwide, which can foster community leadership and education in responsible horse ownership for young people. From 2015 to date, the Department has spent a total of over €2 million on urban horse projects. There are currently 8 live projects, and in late 2023, the Department hosted a seminar dedicated to the promotion of the urban horse projects nationwide, and the seminar encouraged collaboration and the exchange of ideas, best practices among local authorities and other stakeholders, with the view towards enabling more projects to be successfully established.
Thanks, Minister. Look, in my own introduction, I did acknowledge that the government has done, its bit in terms of providing money, as I said, for charity. And I notice in the department's response that you've read that, legislation is constantly being kept under review, which, look, I have to obviously welcome. But I do genuinely feel that we have more than enough legislation that's there already. There's reams upon reams of legislation there, whether it's the Control of Horses Act, whether it's the Animal Health and Welfare Act. The powers that I'm actually asking for, they're already there. All I'm really asking for is enforcement. And I just noticed in the department's response, they're saying these powers can be used in respect of straying horses. Local authorities may prosecute offenders. I think we should be putting, the local authorities to the pin of their collars. They must prosecute people. They must seize horses that are in distress or in emaciated conditions. They have to do this. And I think that it's incumbent on us to ensure, as I said, that the merry-go-round of is it the guards, is it the local authority, is it the landowner, is it the Department of Agriculture, that is actually what is happening. It's just a merry-go-round at the moment. And I really feel that if we're going to be sincere about this and serious about tackling the issue, the only way to do it is to give responsibility to an individual within the local authority, preferably, that somebody can actually ring on a Monday morning or a Friday evening. There's a stray horse below in the field, there's a stray horse out on the road. I'm seriously concerned about this animal's welfare, and actually talk to a person. Because what's happening at the moment, as I said, is people are being pushed around from pillar to post and animals are suffering. And just the last thing I'd like to read into the record is The total number of seizures of animals in 2020 was 819. Now, on the face of it, it looks quite good. It's decreased every year up to 2024, and we only seized 288. So on the face of it, it actually looks like there's less and less of this happening. But I can tell you from my own constituency's perspective, there's more and more of this happening. So the figures actually lead me to believe that the authorities are just doing less, and they're relying more on charities to pick up the slack. So I just ask that maybe you take that suggestion back about the appointment of officers into local authorities back to the ministers. Thank you.
Thank you, Deputy. And I will relay what you said here back to the ministers. And just to add, in dealing with breaches of equine identification legislation, the policy is to adopt a fair and proportional approach. Authorised officers engage with keepers to ensure that they understand their responsibilities, and where potential breaches of the legislation are identified, they generally provide an opportunity for non-compliant keepers to rectify the position within a specified time frame. Last year, €6 million in funding went to 101 animal welfare charities throughout the country under the Animal Welfare Grant Programme. Of that figure, just over €3.4 million was awarded to charities involved in the care and welfare of horses. The Department also operates a confidential animal welfare helpline through which members of the public can report incidents of animal cruelty or neglect for investigation. But as I say, Deputy, I will relay your message here today back to the ministers. Thank you.
Thank you very much.